Hi everyone, welcome back to Voice of Students.
Powered by Onata, I'm Jyoti.
I'm Bianca.
After hearing such unique opinions on romantic relationships, we want to hear how social media impacts your relationships with family, friends, and employers.
Okay, so to start, how has interacting with family members on social media positively or negatively affected your life? And if you don't have family members on there, how has that also positively or negatively affected you?
Before we do that, I would like our participants to introduce themselves.
My name is Aram.
My name's Dominique.
I'm Keith.
Can you tell us a little bit more about you?
Yeah. Oh, sure. I'll start. I'm a senior at Rutgers University, and I'm studying political science. So I'm super excited to get started today. Know a lot about having employers and family on social media too.
Awesome.
I'm a sophomore. I'm a marketing major. I don't know why, but I like communications. I'm part of the Rutgers radio station, WRSU. Shout out. And yeah, I like entertainment. I go into the city a lot. I do some background acting and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. My name is Aram. I'm an economics major. I'm a senior at Rutgers, and yeah.
All right, so to start, how has interacting with family members through social media outlets negatively or positively affected your life? And if you don't have family members on social media, how has that affected you also? Anybody could start?
For me, it's always positive for the most part because having my family is my support system basically. So anything I share on Facebook or Instagram, like things that I'm doing at Rutgers, things that I'm enjoying, they're always like, "Oh my God, we're so proud of you! Like, keep doing what you're doing." And it's also a much easier way for me to update all of them because I have family in Colorado and Florida and Virginia, so it's impossible to like make time to call every single person individually. So making one general like post like, "Hey, here's an update. I'm graduating soon. You guys can come up. Let me know. Hit me up. Let me know what's up." It's just a lot easier to have that connection with family without having to take all of that time to talk to every single person. But yeah.
How about you?
Okay, so like my dad's the type of person that's always asking questions like, "Where you are? What are you doing?" Like, so say like I'm in New York, right, acting or something. He's like, "But shouldn't you be studying?" And I'm like, "Well, then I'm not in New York." You know what I mean? So if I put that on Instagram, then he follows me on Instagram, then he's like, "Oh, he's in New York," and I'm like, "No, but I'm not though." So I have to like lie about those things. Hopefully they're not watching this. So, but yeah, like social media, like the way your friends see stuff and the way your parents or family see stuff are like totally different. So like on your Instagram or your Finsta, whatever, on your story, say you have like a final or you have like 17 finals and you're stressed out. A lot of times people on social media are like posting that, right? Like to your friends, like, "Oh my God, I'm stressed out." So your friends would see that and like be like, "Oh, I understand what they're talking about." But then you would have your parents, cousins, aunt, uncle, whatever, they'd see that and be like, "Okay, we need 23 psychiatrists, we need to get them some medication, send them to the hospital."
It's
you know what I mean?
true,
So it's
true.
like different perspectives on how people see stuff.
Right, exactly.
I think I don't know. I have like a weird relationship with that because I don't add all my family on like Facebook, Instagram, just because like I don't know. Like I have like a weird like I don't want you. It's like the whole like oversharing thing again. Like I don't want you to know everything unless I'm ready to tell you, because then it like sets up like weird like expectations too, right? Like I've had like I feel like a lot of people have dealt with like when they share like a piece of news a little too early, and then like it becomes like all eyes on it, right? Like for example, like one of my cousins, like she like posted like a job that she had gotten, but then like she had like the offer rescinded for like extenuating circumstances, but it's already like out there like on Facebook, Instagram, right? So now all like the rest of our family is like asking her mom, right? Because like
She's
you know
like,
all my mom's gossip, right? Like my mom just like sits there like gossips like with all my aunts and stuff. So like when it comes to that, it's like, damn, like you already set up that expectation, and now like everyone has that perception already.
well, with me for that, like what I'll do is I'm very strategic on how I add people on my social media.
Smart.
So like Facebook, I'll add like if you even have my last name and you have a mutual friend, like
I'll be sketchy.
It's not, because I know. I mean, I can look at their page and be like, "Oh, I clearly see the mutual friends. You're friends with all my aunts and uncles." Like,
no.
I know that's. I know you have no harm against
What if
me.
it's like a friend, ex-boyfriend, and you're like, "Oops, didn't know."
Oh,
And
well,
they're,
like,
finding you.
I would probably know if it was a friend's ex-boyfriend. I mean, like, family-wise, like, if it's like a distant cousin or something like that that's like trying to reconnect, I'll be more likely to add them on Facebook than I would Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, Instagram, I'll do like my close cousins and something like that, like people I see regularly.
Right.
Like, that way, when I cut up a little bit, like they're not like, "How could you say?" Like they already know that's how I usually talk, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Exactly. So you think it sets a sort of standard for
Yeah.
yourself as a person?
Yeah, it's just easier to know where things fall. I think that's a big issue with where people come up with problems in social media. They don't know where what belongs. Like Facebook is family, fun. Like we went to the beach, we had a great time, like got a job, like great. Instagram is like, okay, like we can get a little turn here.
Right,
Like
right.
I can post like a picture of me and a drink and it won't be like a big deal. But even then, like it's still not something I would do,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you could have a lot more leniency on Instagram versus Facebook.
Right. So different apps have different leniency
So
with.
you don't include your family in Instagram. You do
Yeah, like I'll add like the close family members, like my brother, my sister-in-law, close cousins, but
Okay.
like aunts and uncles, I really don't.
Yeah, yeah.
really don't need them on there.
And I feel that a lot of parents, like moms, dads, like they are on Instagram now. Personally, my mom, when I left for college, didn't know what she was going to do. So she loves pictures and she's like, please make me an Instagram account. I just want something to do during the day and scroll and like see what you're up to. And I said, all right, like not a problem. So things like that, that's kind of how it works in that sense. But aunts and uncles on Instagram, I don't know about. I don't know if you guys are.
No, I completely agree.
All right, so like since apps like Instagram and Facebook have the feature to broadcast live video footage, you could now go live on your story, things like that. Everything has become real time now. These social media apps are coming to life even more so than they already were. So how has this played a role?
How this feature played a role in your use of social media?
I don't know. I think Instagram Live has become like a drama thing.
Yeah.
Like I
It's always juicy.
Yeah, it's always just like to be honest, like I'm just like enthralled by like people who just hop on live and just go on like crazy
The thing is,
rants.
people think it's like, oh, nobody's gonna see it, but everybody screen records and then puts it on YouTube, so it's like, okay, everybody saw it.
They think
So
it
it's
goes
no
away
different.
because they're no longer live, but
Yeah.
people all have it. Like they're all saving it, they're sending it to people, so it definitely has that effect.
Yeah. I don't think I ever use Instagram Live. Maybe if I'm at an event, but even then, like at that point, I'll just take my own video.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever used Instagram Live, but like I've always watched other people just to like hear them like spill whatever drama that they want to.
I usually only watch celebrity. And
Yeah,
even
yeah,
then,
yeah,
like I'm
it's
really
like-
not watching it because at that point, it's just them reading the comments, and you're just like, okay, like I can do this.
So do you
Literally
use
any other time.
Snapchat more? Or like,
I have mixed feelings about Snapchat. Because now that it's all on Instagram, you don't really need
Yeah, people are still on Snapchat. Like,
Yeah, like, I don't understand.
It makes your skin look so much better though.
Yeah, no,
What,
yeah.
Snapchat?
Yeah.
The camera's
Snapchat
better.
camera is always
That-
more successful.
Snapchat, it's like when you have two mirrors, you know, like one mirror, you're like, oh my god, I just walked into GQ. And then the other one is like, wow, he's a trash can. You know what I mean? That's like how Snapchat is, you know? I feel like it's just like,
No,
ooh. And
yeah.
then it's like you go to Instagram, you're like, who's that?
Yeah, you're like,
Who
is she?
Yeah.
never met her, never heard her.
Right.
Like, don't know her.
Can you think of a time where, you know, some celebrity was on live where it was controversial or if there was something happening?
I think the Tyrese thing when he almost
my
lost
God.
the Apple deal with Beats.
Is that the what more do you want from? Is that that?
No,
video?
it's the one where he's like, I remember it was like around the time where Beats was selling itself to Apple, and like it wasn't finalized yet, and then Dr. Dre and Tyrese like I guess like
Who's
having
that?
huh
Who's
Tyrese he's like the guy from like Fast and
Tyrese?
Furious.
Oh.
Yeah,
watch
he's like one of the
Fast
guys from Fast and Furious. But
He's also a singer.
He's also a singer, right?
Yeah, he's also an actor.
Yeah.
Tyrese is it.
But like they went on like I think they were on Instagram Live or Facebook Live. And, you know, they're like toasting like $1 billion boys, right? Like stuff like that. Like drunk, like you could easily tell, like super drunk. And then they get like a call from like Apple, who's like the deal isn't finalized, right? Like they almost lost like a $3 billion deal over it. And I think that's what I think people don't realize about like something like live, right? Like especially when you're out and like you don't want like you think it's like, oh, like I'm just live, like as long as like, but like you said, like people are screen recording it, people are watching it, and like anything could realistically happen once you're on live.
Oh yeah, that's terrifying. Like I could never imagine like day to day. Just this is me, like,
Yeah.
right here, right now. Like it has to be.
There's been some
filtered.
shady things that people do on live.
Oh, definitely.
There's like scary things. There's been like police reports like about lives or like people do like weird things. Didn't Lindsay Lohan have something?
The one that I could think of off the top of my head is, I don't know if you guys follow Jersey Shore, but Ronnie from Jersey Shore and his baby's
Yeah.
mother
Yeah, baby moms, yeah.
were they were getting into a physical altercation. He was actually putting hands on her on camera, and so that was everywhere. Even though it was on Instagram Live, it was on every news article. It was on MTV News. Things like that. You think that it's never going to come back to you, and he ended up facing a lot for that.
No, that's actually really true. Like, Facebook Live and Instagram Live has actually become a tool in news because you can say what's happening right now at the time. Like, I think with the, what was it? I think of Philando Castile up in Minnesota, I believe. Like, when he was shot by the police, like, his girlfriend was live recording that on Facebook Live. Like, and that evidence, like, wouldn't have been there, like, without
it.
that app.
Right.
I mean, still, she could have just recorded it too, but, like, still, it was being broadcasted to people at that time, and people were, like, commenting, like, calling the police, like, putting it on news reports, and it's like crazy how such a tool that's meant for entertainment turns into now like a news reporting app.
Right.
So, yeah.
So do you believe that this new feature now on all different social media apps, do you think it's both beneficial and detrimental to the social media age?
It's definitely detrimental more so in my opinion, but I can always try and see the benefits of it. Like, it does allow for more family to like see what's happening, like for you to connect more with your followers, especially if you're like building a brand, you know what I mean? It's easier for you to see what your followers want directly.
I think that's like the more positive aspect of it, like that is underutilized, right? I think it's like a live, like, because a lot of like people I know, like you said, like to build brands, right? Like it's like live communication with people that, like if people hop on your live, they can comment, ask questions, so it just gives you like a different type of platform rather than like the old where like somebody would have to like email you a list of questions, right? Like I could just read the comments of my live and be like, all right, these are the questions I'm answering, right? These are like, it's like a much more like, I guess like personal way to interact with like followers.
Yeah, it feels more personal. Like when you're watching like a celebrity's live, you're like, ooh, I got like.
Yeah.
I'm
an
like
exclusive.
inside like, the fan club,
Right.
and then in reality, it's not.
I think it's like a really cool thing because like whereas like a platform like Instagram is like super polished and everything is super polished, live is like that one thing where it feels a lot more like personal, like oh like this is like the real you, right?
Yeah.
Like it's very like
But
unfiltered.
then also everybody's not there, so you feel like you're getting stuff that everybody isn't.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it feels more exclusive, but
Yeah.
it's really not.
Right. Okay, so according to a 2018 Career Builder survey, 70% of employers use social media to screen candidates during the hiring process. So how has your use of social media impacted your life, whether it brought you new opportunities or it kind of hindered your success?
Either your or your friends' experiences, if you can share.
I think there's like pros and cons to it, right? Like I think everyone can like kind of relate. Like social media basically created everyone into a brand, right? Like even if you're like if you're just like a pretty girl or an attractive guy, right? You immediately have a brand, and it gives you a lot of like opportunities for business. Like there's so many kids like on campus that are like ambassadors for like whatever brand, right? Like
Yeah.
Aerie ambassadors, Pink ambassadors, whatever have you. But on the I guess on the more corporate-ish level, that's where it becomes detrimental, right? I think like the less traveled routes become more accessible through social media, but things like regular corporate America jobs, like that's when like social media is kind of like detrimental to your career, right? Because you're going into like politics, right?
Yeah.
So like social media for that is like I guess like a lot different.
Right. So right now, with the way I have like my social media set up, I try to make sure like it's things that are personal, but also not too personal at the same time. So I'm always willing to like share facts about myself, like what I like things that I enjoy, this and that. But I'm also not like, oh, I totally went to this stage, skip class. Like I would never do that. It's more so here are the things that I'm interested in, and it's a package. You know what I mean? You have to present yourself in a way that you want people to hire you, and it's all pre-made basically. So I know with social media, you don't always get someone's authentic self, but it is a good glimpse into how they do try to show themselves.
Yeah.
But
Right.
Yeah. For me, like I have all my social media not on my name. You know what I mean? So it's all under a different name. So when you look my name up, like an employer would like look my name up and it wouldn't come up, you know? But a lot of people have it on their name, so you can
I think that's
obviously
like a
find
trap
it,
though.
yeah.
Like I think you're underestimating how much information that like employers like hire like specific people to like really like look into you.
I mean, it's
like
like real hard.
Like they'll find it. Like they'll.
I don't know how.
Like I think like I'm sure like everyone here has heard stories of like people like I haven't heard of like anybody losing a job, but I've heard of people like losing like scholarships and stuff to like when I remember when I was like applying to like colleges and stuff, like everyone like privatized their like, because there's so many stories about like D1 athletes who like lost their like scholarships because like something was found on their Instagram or
But
like
on their Instagram with their name.
Oh yeah, but like it's like, but you also have like people who like go way back, right? If it was ever under your name or ever associated to an email of yours, right? Like Kevin Hart lost his Oscar, like the chance to host the Oscars over some tweet that was tweeted like 5-6 years, like however back, right? And that's how like, I think that's like the underestimated side. Like we don't realize like how permanent anything we've put up is, right? Like,
Right.
Very true.
like music, like you know how, the worst I think feature that I've kind of appreciate now is that you know how like Facebook will tell you anything you've posted on this day like 5 years ago,
Right.
like the
Yeah.
memories
That's a
one, right?
feature.
And I realized like it's good and bad because it's good because it shows me all the stupid things I used to post like 6-7 years ago, and it helps me like be able to be like, okay, like now I'm gonna delete it. But it's also bad because it's like, damn, like it's actually out
It's
there,
out
and,
there.
and it's probably permanent. Like even though I'm deleting it, quote unquote, from
Yeah.
my like wall, I don't think it like disappears from like Facebook.
I think what it becomes a bigger problem is for celebrities, because if you delete it, people could just have a screenshot of it. You know what I mean? But for
Yeah.
me and you, once you delete it on Facebook, yeah, it's somewhere, but it's not really.
But do you think like
Available.
you've gone back far enough in your own like internet history to clear up everything? Like I'm like
Nothing really comes up.
like
You know
I don't
what
think
mean?
I've
It's like
I don't
the
think I've
first
ever
page.
posted anything like super like controversial or anything, but I'm sure I've posted something dumb when I was like 16, right?
Right.
And like for that to be like dragged up like later on, right?
But then
like
delete it.
Huh?
But then you could delete it
No.
now, and it wouldn't come up.
No, I could delete it now, but I would have that would make sure that I would have to go back and actively make the effort to delete everything from my past.
Oh my God, you have a lot of posts.
No, like I don't know.
I feel like-
no,
How
not
much is
like
elite? I
on
mean, it
something
would
like Instagram, right? Like I had a Twitter like I don't have a Twitter anymore, right? But like I had a Twitter like 4 or 5 years back, and like so all my tweets like I'd have to like filter through.
You could
Right.
just deactivate the account.
Yeah, which is what
I
I
think-
ended up doing.
I think also what you need to take into consideration with these apps is when did you create the account? Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
with Instagram, that was coming out around the time where, I mean, we're all around the same age
Yeah.
group, around when we were getting into high school,
Yeah.
around then. With Twitter, I remember making an account, I was still in middle school.
Exactly.
So imagine the things coming out of my mouth then, you know? And now when I think back to that and I think about I want to get rid of certain things, I wouldn't even know where to begin because I'm
Yeah.
so deep into the app and I've had it for
Exactly.
so long that I'm in this place where I'm like, do I delete the entire account in its own, or
And
you know,
restart,
how do you
yeah.
move forward with
I mean,
this?
what you can do is search up like certain phrases. So like, okay, what's something problematic I might have said in middle school? Like so and so sucks. Like let me plug that in. And I think if you put your @name and the phrase, like it'll filter out all the
Yeah.
tweets that have like
They have
that
like
phrase
advanced
in
search
it.
for Twitter now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to find stuff you could put like from a set like time, date, like it's crazy. Like,
And does that
Deleted
scare you?
stuff from Twitter?
no, I was looking at for actually news sources. I was looking for like
Okay.
a school project about the State of the Union, but I didn't want like current tweets. I wanted tweets from when it was happening, right? So I put in the start date of the State of the Union, and I put like maybe a day after, and like 2 times, like when I wanted it to end. Then you could put like a hashtag in there. So like a hashtag state of, so SOTU, right? And then it comes up with all the people that tweeted those in like that set period of time with that hashtag. You know what I mean?
Right.
So things like
Okay.
that, it's like interesting.
Right. So imagine then when people know about those resources and they know how to search all these tweets, if something controversial is happening in the US or whether it has to do
Yeah.
with serious things or whether it has to do with celebrities and pop culture, they're going to target certain people and they're going to look at what you've said in the past. And if it's there, I mean, like you said about Kevin Hart, he wasn't expecting something
Exactly.
from 6 years ago that he said to be controversial at this point. But that's just how it flows.
Yeah, I feel like the important thing with that kind of thing, like, is if you do get called out on it, you have to be able to acknowledge, like, yeah, okay, this was 6 years ago. I've grown as a person. Like, obviously, I deeply apologize for this, and I know the implications of it. I feel like most celebrities that get in trouble for it are always like, well, why were you looking that far back anyway? It's like, wait, why are you on the
Yeah.
defense? Like,
But for him, that's what he did, and people still aren't happy. Like
I don't
5
know.
years ago when it came out, when he tweeted that, he already apologized.
Yeah.
And somebody purposely came out, found it from 5 years ago, brought it back up to purposely try to go
Yeah.
after him. You know what I
But-
mean? And then he re-apologized, and then people are still like,
I feel like
apologize.
with that, like, it's still mixier than that because I know there was a point where he's like, I'm not apologizing for it again. And it's something where it's like, okay, you could have just said, hey, I apologize for this 5 years ago. I, again, acknowledge this. I'm apologizing again. I would prefer not to do this anymore. I've acknowledged it. Instead, it was, well, I already apologized for it. I just told y'all I'm not homophobic as I say more homophobic jokes. It's like, you all just don't want me to host the Oscars. Like, no, we just want you to acknowledge. Because not everyone sees everything when it comes out. Like, 5 years ago, I wasn't thinking about what Kevin Hart was doing.
It goes both ways.
Do
'Cause,
you
like,
think, like how you said, the celebrities, do you think any of your friends, the backlash that has been posted on the social media, any of your friends or families that they have posted, have they received any backlash from family, friends?
So it's like actually like a funny story. So for my fraternity, like to teach them the lesson of like making sure like your social media is clean. Like the second day that they like pledge, like we like as a fraternity go through the entire pledges classes like social media and pull it up on a screen and have them like read out like stupid stuff that they've posted. So like a lot of things like you're saying like people clean it, like you don't realize like the amount of things, like I'm sure like everyone has like Venmo here, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't control what your friends are charging you for on Venmo, right? Like so many of like the most common one I always see is like you know like kids joking around like charging their friends for like drugs or like for last night or like some stupid stuff like that, and we like put it up on the screen and make them read it.
That's the thing.
Like I do.
I don't have Venmo. I don't trust
Yeah,
Venmo.
so like people do that, right? So like backlash like that. Like I remember one of the kids that like pledged after me, like he like came up to me, like started crying because like one of the things was like his Facebook, like one of his friends posted like something on his Facebook like years ago. He's probably like 14, 15, and it was like some like I think it was like some anti like Islamic like thing, right? And like we had him read it, and he's just like, I don't want people to think like this is me. Like it's not indicative of who I am, but he's just like, I can't, like, I was just like, listen, like, I won't think less of you, but it is what it, like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's up there.
It's up there now, and you can't deal with it.
Right.
Exactly.
And you can't do anything past that point except, you know, acknowledgement. So do you think acknowledgement kind of has a way of bridging a gap between all of this controversy in social media?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't just say something, you have to like show the actions behind it. Like if it's something that's obviously reoccurring, like if you keep making like homophobic tweets or Islamophobic tweets, like, all right, like you could apologize for the one from 5 years ago, but if you're still doing it 5 years later, like it's clear that you don't really care about it.
But the thing is, like, we're talking about like a very public thing, but like what happens like in a job employment situation, right? Like you don't have like a second chance at it, right? It's like you don't get a chance to acknowledge what you said, right?
Yeah.
Like as soon as they say it, they won't even tell you that that's the reason you didn't get a job.
Yeah.
Like you just won't get the job.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Some people will not give you an explanation, and some people think that you don't deserve an explanation because of what they see, and there's a difference between the two.
Yeah, because like you'll just see like rejected from whatever job, and then they're never gonna explain like, oh, like yeah, we found this like random tweet about you. Like they're just gonna be like, you don't get it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So have you guys ever gotten into any sort of trouble or been like in the hot seat for maybe a meme that you've reposted, whether it be from family or anybody? Because that's another thing, you know, this is meme culture. Like everybody is always sending back and forth all these things. And so sometimes when it's approached by family members or by an employer even, when they see certain things, they won't see this certain humor that you see behind it. So have you guys ever been in a situation where that's happened?
I think. I think there was like a recent one. I don't know if I forget if I was the one who shared the meme, but like everyone like knows Chris Brown, right? Everyone knows his thing with like Rihanna, right? And then it was like a meme where it was like some girl saying like, oh, I'm gonna cancel Chris Brown, and then it was like, Say Goodbye starts playing at the club, right? Or Run It starts playing at the club, and it's like a bunch of girls like dancing to the dance floor. And one of my friends, like she was just all like I hate Chris Brown, and I was all like, listen, like I don't know what to tell you, like.
People are very contradictory of that, though. They'll be like, "Oh my God, he's canceled."
Like I'm canceling Chris Brown, right? But then Run It starts playing, and they're still there. Yeah.
No, I get it. You gotta like hold firm in your cancellation.
Like I'm canceling R. Kelly, and then like Ignition plays,
No,
and then
he's canceled. I don't care anyway.
You're never playing Ignition ever again?
I'm never playing Ignition ever again. I don't care. I'm never playing any of those songs ever again. He's canceled. Like, he has to go to jail.
He's on his way.
Like,
Or the meme that I think about, do you remember Demi Lovato?
Yes.
Yeah.
What happened with her?
Oh, like the
Just
21 Savage thing.
most
Yeah,
recent.
so
Oh, yes.
so it was 21 Savage and it was like talking about the immigration and stuff like that. And then nobody knew that he was from Britain. And he was like, wait, what? So Demi Lovato reposted this meme, whatever, with like 21 Savage with like a big like feather quill pen, like writing his lyrics. And she's like, this is how he writes his lyrics, like as like a joke that he's
Yeah.
British. And then everybody took it as like, oh, you're talking about like how you making fun of him when he's like being deported. You're making fun of him as being like while he's getting deported. She's like, that's not what I was saying, like whatsoever. And then everybody's coming at her about like her drug use, and they're like, okay, go back to like heroin, go back to like your needles, go back to this and that.
Right.
And then she went
Yeah.
back into rehab.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I did feel bad about
yeah.
that one.
So it shows how much power, like even a meme, just to be funny, like it really influences the culture, it influences the people around you. And even if you don't think it's as serious when you post it, you know, it has an impact.
I think that's why, like, you could even argue that, like the safest way, like, obviously, like, but, like, the most, like, is to not have social media, because we live in, like, a pretty, like, very, very, like, sensitive era where, like, it may not, like, be, like, because everyone has access to all your information, like, you may not offend, like, 99% of people, but you'll offend, like, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing you'll post that'll be completely, like,
Yeah.
like completely good with
People are too
everybody.
sensitive nowadays. though.
Yeah, like, nothing is
People need
safe.
to
Like,
take
that's
a
the
deep
thing.
breath and like just chill for a sec.
Yeah.
Because they're all like, oh my god, you meant that, and it's like it's a joke. Like chill.
right.
Like comedians are gonna say nothing nowadays.
Oh,
They're gonna be like.
See, like,
good
that's,
job.
but, like, here's the thing, like, we could
Yeah.
complain about it, but, like, there's also, like, nothing we could realistically do about, like, everyone being sensitive outside of, like, don't post anything at all, because anything you will post will
No, no,
get.
no.
That's true. I feel like with jokes and stuff, like you know what's funny and you know what's true. I get with comedians, like that's definitely a little bit of a gray area because like there are raunchy comedians and stuff like that, and people like you wouldn't be able to get away with things like that. But you can be funny without being homophobic. Like you
No,
can
no,
be
not,
funny.
but, like,
Yeah, but
no,
a
but that's like an
comedian-
argument that people
Yeah,
always make. Like,
not even homophobic, but, like, think about, like, Dave Chappelle, like, super, like, funny,
Yeah.
like, super funny, like, very, like, politically backed jokes, right? But anything that he says will be offensive to at least one group of
Yeah.
people.
That's what I feel like. If a comedian's offensive to everybody, then it's not offensive.
Yeah,
That's
especially
what
when he's
I
offensive to
personally believe.
himself, right?
Yeah.
right.
If you're offensive to everybody, it's like you're
You're
clearly
still
telling
offensive.
jokes.
You're just
No,
offensive
you're
to
offensive to
everyone.
everybody and
That's not how
yourself.
it works.
Especially with comedians, a huge part of the business and the industry is to be controversial. They're doing it
Yeah.
on purpose. They want to offend people in a certain way on purpose because they know it's going to register in the media. They know it's going to get exposure. They know it's going to circulate, and that's how they keep
Become
up.
popular.
Well, okay, if you have like a political joke, then you're offending half the other party.
Well,
Like,
it depends on
everything's
how that
offensive.
joke is, because there are jokes and then there's like malicious. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but you
I
can
feel
say
like
anything. You could say, "Oh, I don't like Trump looks like an orange," and then people go, "Oh, well, that's offensive. Like, I
Like-
love him. Like, he's an inspiration for me," and
I
then you're
know.
offending them.
It's like an orange is one thing. Like an orange like doesn't bother anyone. Like people always
But it
forget
does
the
bother
impact.
People. That's the thing. People go, "That's the president of our country. You can't disrespect him."
Oh, but people always forget the impact that they have when it comes, especially marginalized groups and their jokes. Like, I promise I'm not trying to be a buzz. But this is I'm so passionate about this because people always forget like people's actions have consequences. So like people die over
Yeah.
things that people joke about. So like it might be funny, haha, to us, but like those jokes have implications when people take those a step further. You know what I mean? Like me calling someone an orange, like isn't the same thing as me making a homophobic joke and then like people die every day for being gay. Like, you know what I mean? That's like the boundary area that people always like mistake. That's just my humble opinion. But
Exactly.
Okay, so what do you think if whatever we have, we have extended family in connections, if social media did not exist, how would it be? Would there be an impact?
And in every aspect, just your family, where you work, your career, you know, how it could develop, things like that. How would that be different if social media was not here at all?
yeah, I think it would be much harder to network, at least from what I can say from the political side of things, like which is how most people get their jobs, which like is a double-edged sword. That's like its own conversation. But like without things like LinkedIn, where that's how you can connect with people and like post things that you've been doing or some of the work that you've been working on and like showcasing what you're good at and your talents, it would be much more difficult because then you had to do those on a much more face-to-face level, which
Okay.
is also again like a double-edged sword too because people lose those interpersonal skills as well. Like they don't know how to talk to people unless it's through a screen. So
Right.
I think I don't know, like in terms of like family, I know like for example, like I have a huge like extended family, like, and like, you know, just like brown people are just like super close to all their family. So like it used to be like, I remember like growing up, my mom would have to call literally like me, like all my like 7 aunts, right, like extended cousins, and like get a life update them about life. And now I realize, like, now that like my mom's on Facebook, my dad's on Facebook, those calls are a lot less frequent because everyone kind of knows like what's going on in your life. Anytime me and my family go out, like my dad has to post like a pic of where we're going, right? And like and be like, you know what I mean? Like everyone knows everything, right?
He's a blogger.
Yeah, like my dad has more Facebook friends than I do, like, but like he like shares everything. So like at that point, it doesn't connecting with like extended family that you wouldn't see or hear from every day becomes much easier, but it also doesn't feel as like personal anymore.
I'll give you that. Yeah, like holiday cards aren't really a thing anymore. You'll just make like a post.
You'll just
But do you guys have similar experiences to that? Do you have extended family that you speak to, or people that, I mean, you met on vacation, things like that, people that you meet that don't live anywhere near you?
Sometimes. So I was lucky enough to like go on a few conferences for Rutgers and stuff like that, and because Rutgers is a Big Ten school, so that includes like Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, the 2 Michigan schools, stuff like that. So I'll make friends out there and add them on Facebook and get to update them on what we're doing at Rutgers and vice versa, because you never know like what they're doing and how that can influence like the steps that you're taking. Like, oh, like what a cool program and initiative you guys are working on. Like, we should try that here at Rutgers, that kind of thing. So it's a good networking tool as well. So I love adding people on Facebook.
I was gonna say, it's good for networking.
Yeah.
Like social media, Instagram too. Like a lot of people think like LinkedIn, but like on a more personal connection.
Yeah.
Like I meet like random people sometimes. Like I'm like friends with this girl in Canada. I'm like, how did that happen? It's like so random because we were both like waiting in line for something and we started talking. You know what I mean? Just like random things like that. Or like I was talking to these 2 girls because I was doing this like acting thing, and then one of them is like plus size model, so she does like modeling in Times Square and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, so now I know a model. Like that was crazy. And then I was talking to this other girl who's like, she's in Brooklyn and she does like all this acting stuff with A&E, and I'm like, okay, now I know.
like even Cardi was born off of social media in a way, right? Like the way that people adopted her and stuff like that.
And nowadays, like that's like the best way of marketing.
Yeah,
like it's cheaper for them, first of all, because they don't need to be. It's like $1 million for a commercial on TV. You know what I mean? For like a 30-second slot, for them to pay one person. Say they pay. Do you know Shane Dawson? So he has like 12 million plus subscribers, probably even more now. Subscribers on YouTube. So it's like he makes one video, he talks about a product for like a good minute, and that's like millions and millions, like maybe 10 million people that saw that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I feel like it's cheaper for the company, and it's like the easiest way to market for them nowadays.
So it's become a very important part of our day-to-day living.
Awesome.
We're taking a short break now.
We'll be back in a moment.
Welcome back to Voice of Students, powered by Onata. I would like to know if you would like to tell your fellow students the impact that it has caused by Kavanaugh's incidents and the Virginia governor.
Yeah, so with those 2 incidents, my first piece of advice is don't be a trash person, like a racist, like the governor of Virginia who was in blackface on his yearbook, or like Kavanaugh, who was allegedly, I think he did it, sexually assaulted Christina Ford, I believe is her full name, and now he is a lifetime member of the Supreme Court. And then secondly, for the background part of that, all of those informations were found pre-social media. All of that was like on their yearbooks and photos, just commentary from friends. So I think it's just important to make sure that you're keeping up a standard of a person that you want to be perceived as, you know what I mean? Like I get it, in college is always fun and it's fun to go out and drink and party and stuff like that, but you want to make sure that you're balancing that right and that you're not only known as that kind of person, because that does come back to bite in the end, like we saw with Kavanaugh. Like he almost, I think, should have lost that opportunity to be the Supreme Court justice. So true. So yeah.
Even though it was like found pre-social media, like we have to like still analyze like the role that social media played in that. Even though like you know what I mean, like it was like all done pre-social media. One was like a yearbook, and you know what I mean. But at the same time, like we have to understand that like it gave any, like let's say like you had like knew something about like one of us, right? Like 50 years ago, right? And I was up for election to be like the governor of New Jersey, right? for you to like have that story out there, you would have to like back then would have to reach out to like a major newspaper, like a New York Times, and get your story out there, right? And for you to do that, it would take mad work. Like go reach out, make sure you're get it like backed, like get it factually backed and everything, right? Now you could just tweet or like tweet it at somebody, and then somebody will run with it. Somebody will find it and run with it, right? So like that's where like I think social media does play it, right? Because his yearbook picture, right? Like that's been in existence for a long time, right? But it wasn't until he came into the limelight where it's like, oh, now we have this thing, right? That person could have been sitting on, like whoever shared it could have been sitting on that yearbook picture for years now, right? But decided not to share it until it became beneficial, right? In that moment. So like I'm really interested to see like what politics, what life is going to look like 30, 40 years down the line. Because like now, like growing up, like there's probably like a lot of politicians who got away with doing certain things because they didn't have like social media sharing everything that they were doing, right? But 30, 40 years, like you're going to have to be like a damn near like perfect human being to get one of those positions, right? Like look at the way people are following Malia Obama. Like she's in college right now, right? And people are like, oh my gosh, she's like drinking underage, right? She's in college, like 99% of the population is drinking underage, right? But like in the future, when some like maybe I don't know what she wants to do, but like if she decides to go into politics, they're gonna be like, oh, but like remember, like you drank underage, right? Like that's always gonna be brought up.
And people always use it against you.
Yeah, it's just like so many things in like 30 years, like in politics, will have like people will have ammunition against you unless you've been mindful of this your entire life, right? Like if somebody is like right now, like if I think it's too late. Like if I decide like I want to go into politics on like a very like political, like I want to be a governor, right? I know that like my social media is not nearly perfect enough for me to ever like, get there, because I know somebody will bring up like some underage pic or like something, right? So like now, like if like you have like a kid right now and like you want him to get into politics and stuff, you basically have to tell him like, listen, don't have like any like you have to be mindful starting now at the age of like 5. Like you don't like at the age of 5. Like listen, don't post anything. like you just have to like drill that in there.
I don't even think it's necessarily that. Like you can have social media, you just have to know how to use it. Like going back to my point, like you can post things like you having a good time and stuff like that.
I wouldn't even say that, because some people, like I'm in different classes, like a lot of personal stories. People said like that they've gotten fired because they like a teacher at Rutgers like a while back, I think, just had a picture of like her, like no problem, like with 2 glasses of wine or something like that, and they fired her.
Like teachers get that a lot.
I mean, I'm not saying
like who does not
perfect.
have
It's controversial.
it's in like an adult that's having wine. Like why is that a problem in any
Right.
sense of the way?
Right.
So like I wouldn't even say like don't even post. Like I personally don't drink, but like don't put any of that online.
It's like, but it's not even just like drinking though. It's like such small things that can eventually. I remember like I think this was like a year ago, and I think she was a 1st grade or 2nd grade teacher. Like the parents like petitioned the school to have her fired because she posted a picture of her in like I guess like a somewhat revealing like cocktail dress, right? And they were just like, oh, we don't want that around our kids, right? So like, how are you gonna control that, right? Like that's like just your life, right? And like, but because she shared it on Instagram and like a parent found it of one of their kids, they ended up sharing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then it became like a huge thing for the school system.
It becomes scary in a way too.
Uh,
You feel like
100%.
I don't know what to do. Like,
100%.
Being a human being is a problem now.
Because,
it's hard.
We in this generation already realize that social media has such an impact on the entire rest of our lives, but then you look at situations like Kavanaugh and the governor, and you're like, okay, well, social media wasn't prevalent around that time, and yet look at what's following them. So now we have this pressure on us because we have these resources. Although we can use them to our advantage at times, it really shows how much of a hot seat we're in, really, in this generation.
However, what I'm hoping is what happens is like when the millennials become like that big voting block eventually, it won't matter necessarily as much. Like, like having your social media be important, but it'll be a generation of people who grew up in social media, know how it operates, and kind of knows what's acceptable. Like, I feel like millennials would be more likely to be like, okay, like this is racist what this guy posted. This is something that we were all doing at that time period, you know what I mean? And like trying to decipher the two. So,
but it's even like it's so difficult. Like I forgot her name, but she's like I think she's a congresswoman in New York, right? She's the one who was really campaigning against Amazon going to New York, right?
Was that AOC?
Yeah. So like super campaigning hard against Amazon, like showing up in New York, but then somebody pulled up her Amazon order history, saying like while she
How
was
did they
campaigning,
do that?
like.
Right? Just
What do you
think
mean? Like the
about
information's
that.
out there. Like you could just look up like like her order history, and they were like, oh, like how are you campaigning against Amazon? But then you're also giving them business, right? So it's so difficult to like. Live, it's so difficult to live that like
That is
perfect
so
life.
silly.
Like it's so difficult to live that perfect life that you know what I mean. Like it's always gonna come back and upset some group.
Well, with that, somebody probably hacked into her computer. You can't. I can't just look up your history.
Yeah.
And then that brings up
I'm sure
another
somebody at
issue.
Amazon like probably shared it.
Well, then that brings another
Yeah.
issue that you like breach of the confidentiality
Yeah.
so easy.
Right, and things like Amazon is a whole different ballgame because
Yeah.
like you have like it's so impossible to boycott Amazon just like it's impossible to boycott Walmart. You know what I mean? Because like they have such horrible practices and you know it, but like when it comes to people who need those, like let's say you have a disability and you have to get your packages, like Amazon's the best person for that job. You know what I mean? Or like if you can't afford like high-end groceries, like Walmart is the best part for that. So that's like a whole nother.
See, that's the thing. I think like
whole other
growing up, like
ballgame.
now you have to just like PR your entire life. Like everyone needs like a public relations person
Right.
at this point, right?
I
Or you have to PR
honestly,
yourself.
I wouldn't
Yes.
like. I'm not upset with that.
But then you go one way, and then you're like bland, and then people are like, "Wow, you're so boring."
Yeah,
Right?
but
you
like
look at some celebrities, they look like the perfect person. They're like, okay, they're literally
think-
the most boring.
to be
in
honest,
the
like,
world.
that's like I think like as like especially now because like kids like have like I didn't get my first phone until I was like my first smartphone until I was like 13, right? But like now like my like little cousins who's like 6 and like 7, right? Like they have like their iPhone or iPad, right? So like but growing up like we were kind of like the generation who had to kind of like explore like what the internet was, right? And like figure it out for ourselves. But now because you're giving like social media to these kids so early, like you're gonna have to start doing like technological like literacy classes almost, right? Like hey, like this is like a real thing. Like you have to start making your kids aware of this. Like yo, this is gonna follow you, right? Even if you're 10 and you really don't understand like life, right?
Right.
Like,
Well, then that brings me to with kids being so young now and using all this technology compared to us growing up where we weren't glued to our phones or our iPads or things like that. How do you think that technology and social media in general and anything like that has changed the family dynamic now? And how do you think it would have been different with you guys growing up with social media or with technology that we have now?
Or I would say that like you were giving advice to your peer students, what advice would you give to your parents? You know, because
yeah.
this generation is always glued to the phone compared to you talking to the parents and you know spending family time sharing things. So what advice would you give to your parents?
For me, so like what my like sister-in-law does with her niece, like they time it. I mean, my niece is also like 7, so it's also good to start young. They have that. I think it's the Kindle Fire where you can lock the time. You're like, okay, you get a maximum of like 3 hours on the iPad or whatever, and they'll go out and like actively play with her. Like it's important not to use iPads as a pacifier. Like a lot of times, like, all right, I have a million things to do. Like I totally get I have to cook, go to the gym, shower, clean up, this and that. Let me just put in Peppa Pig and call it a day. Like I get it, but it's also important to take that time out just to like. Obviously, I'm not a parent, so but just like read with your kid or just hang out with them or engage with them. Just time without the iPad and like taking them to the park, stuff like that.
I think like limiting time is like super important. Like my cousin's like 11 now, but like he really grew up with the internet, right? And the one thing I really noticed is that like growing up, like we had like you were saying, like we had to like have like dial-up internet, right? Like if you were on the internet, like your parents couldn't use the phone, so you were forced to have like a limited amount of time, right? But like my cousin, like he doesn't have any like growing up, like all my friends were like the kids from the neighborhood, right? Because we would have to like play outside, like hang out with each other, right? But they don't have that. They have the advantage of just like being on their phones, right? My like cousin's friends, like none of them are like real people. Like all of his friends are like people on Reddit and stuff that he just interacts with.
That's so creepy.
Yeah, but like I'm just like yo, like because he like lives like next to a kid that's like his age, right? And I was like, my best friend is like the kid who lives like right behind my house, right? Like that's how we became friends. But like for him, he just interacts with these kids on like Reddit, and like it really hinders his like social ability. Cause now like when he's actually hanging out with like the older cousins or like cousins his age, right? Like he just says like weird, awkward, weird stuff.
Oh, no, that's really good.
Because
bad.
because he
creepy.
doesn't know like how to like, you know what I mean, like there's a certain like, I guess like Reddit edit, like how you talk on Reddit, but then like he tries to use that in like real life situations.
But like Reddit's like the bottom of the barrel.
Exactly.
Like he doesn't know who he's talking to.
And he
Exactly.
has access.
Does his
and
parents
he's
know?
Yeah.
able to.
So like that's like a conversation I had to have like with my aunt and uncle. I was like, listen, like, because you know like they're also parents trying to figure it out. They're like, how do we control that? And I was just like, listen, you just have to like at some level you just have to put your foot down as a parent, right? Like of course like they have to have like I think that's a good idea, like time it, but also time it under your supervision, right?
Yeah.
Because even if you're giving like 2 hours, like 2 hours to do what, right? Like you're saying, like Reddit is the bottom of the barrel, right? If it's like 2 hours, then let them, you know, like play Fortnite or whatever, right? Then it's like,
Right.
okay, like they're playing video games, like it's like the same thing, right? But like 2 hours to just scroll through the internet, like that's a different conversation to have, right?
Yeah. Or also just get involved in school. Like literally
Yeah.
any organization get involved with your like even if they're acquainted.
Exactly,
you're bound
right?
To talk to a person, you know.
But because they're not inclined to do it by themselves, because they're just like, why would I do that when I can just sit on my phone and like.
Yeah.
But I feel like, on the other hand, social media comes, like, I feel like we're all on our phones now. You know what I mean?
Right,
Yeah.
Like, you're,
exactly.
like, we're all saying we didn't grow up with it, but aren't we all on our phones?
No,
Like,
now we
on
are,
it
yeah.
now.
Aren't
Yeah.
our parents always all on their phones, like, doing a million
but we have the
things,
opportunity
emails?
to kind of develop like social like skills, right? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like
That's what I mean. I think that, especially today, parents need to realize and understand that this isn't just technology that's keeping them busy. They're learning how to communicate. They're
Yeah.
growing up in this age, and they need to understand how to communicate regularly with people. And sometimes the technology that they're accessing doesn't allow them to gain those skills as normally as we had when we didn't have the
Yeah.
technology
Then
growing
on the
up.
other hand, if you don't give them those skills, then they're set back.
yeah,
Because everybody
that's
else
why
in
it
the
has to be
world
like
is using it.
It has to be like a balance. You can't just be
Yeah.
like, oh, like you can't use the internet, because then your
Right.
kid's never gonna learn
Like
how to
social
actually.
media.
Then they'll be
Or like-
behind.
yeah.
They need to, know those skills as well.
Like we were talking about like you brought up like memes earlier, right? Like it's crazy like how many kids are gonna grow up now thinking like that's gonna be their like version of sense of humor. And we've seen like the messed up
Right.
memes that are on the internet, right? And like for them to and like kids who communicate in memes, right? Like how are you gonna handle that?
Shoot, I'm like, I communicate in memes.
Yeah.
I'm like, chill, I have a meme folder. If I try to move.
All right, that brings us to the end of our Voice of Students debut. Thank you so much to our guests for joining us today.
Tune in next week to hear directly from students about tuition loans, working, and all the financial aspects of being a university student. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Voice of Students, powered by Onata, local part-time jobs.